Hi, everyone. Welcome to my home, and welcome to Storytime with Spoons Across America. And me, Miss Clarice. Have you ever had someone tell you that you couldn't do something because you were a girl or a boy or just too young? That never feels good. And today's story is about a boy who wants to cook, who hears just that he's too young to be a cook. I think you'll find the story inspirational, and you'll also hear a few words that you're unfamiliar with that are French. Before we dive in, let's begin with our storytime song. Are you ready? And it goes a little something like this. S-T-O-R-Y, S-T-O-R-Y, story, story, story. Boom. Now you're ready to listen and learn. The Boy Who Wanted to Cook, written by Gloria Whalen and illustrated by Steve Adams. In the south of France, near the River Tarn, is a little restaurant, La Bonne Vanche. The Good Cow takes its name from its famous Boeuf à la mode, a delicious beef stew. In the kitchen of the restaurant is 10-year-old Pierre, Pierre's father, Monsieur Valcart, who is both chef and patron, that's restaurant owner, says, Pierre, go and play with your friends. Go fishing, says Pierre's mother. Madame Valcourt bakes the pastries for the restaurant. But Pierre wants to cook. He longs to be a great chef, like his father and his grandfather before him. Pierre's father tells him, Pierre, you are too young to be a cook. As Pierre rides his bicycle under the chestnut trees, he imagines a chestnut souffle, which is a fluffy baked dish. When he passes a wood, he thinks of the little mushrooms that grow there. A pair of goats look to him like a very large goat cheese. On the green leaves of the vineyard, he pictures the delicious escargots, the snails nibbling away. To Pierre, all the world is one big, beautiful meal. A car stops, and the driver calls to Pierre. I'm a stranger to these parts. Can you tell me, young man, where I can find La Bonne Vanche? Pierre leans into the car to give directions to his family's restaurant. On the seat next to the man, he glimpses at a paper that says inspection form. On the form is the name of the famous company that awards the stars to restaurants. If the restaurant is very, very, very good, it receives a star, and people all over go there to eat. Inspectors test the restaurant by having a meal there, but there is a strict rule that the identity of the inspector must never be revealed. Pierre gives directions to the inspector, who thanks him and drives away. Pierre knows that the inspector is going to his family's restaurant. Do you think that he'll tell his family? No? Yes? Let's see. Pierre pedals as fast as he can. Should he tell his mother and father who the inspector is? No. He could tell about the stranger coming to the restaurant, but it would not be honorable to tell who he is. Out of breath, he bursts into the kitchen. Mama, Papa, a stranger is coming a long distance to eat at a restaurant. Monsieur Valcart consults the reservations. Oui, there is a name I don't recognize. He slaps his forehead and declares, with so little notice, how are we going to produce a meal worthy of someone who has come a long distance to eat at La Bonche? La Bonne Vanche. I don't have any wild strawberries to make my famous dessert with strawberries. Impossible, says Pierre's mother and father. Pierre recalls from his history class what the great General Napoleon said. He tells his parents, impossible is not French. The mother, the father, and Pierre stand at attention. Impossible is not French, they say together. Pierre, his father says, you must go into the village for us. Pierre races on his bicycle to the village. When Pierre tells Madame Farcy, the dairy cheese woman, of this special occasion, she chooses a cheese so soft, so silken, and with such a subtle aroma, she weeps to part with it. That must be some good cheese. At the butcher shop, he gets a perfect cut of meat for the boeuf à la mode. He also gets tiny onions like pearls, potatoes no larger than marbles, lettuces as tender as rose petals from the butcher, and a basket of plump snails. But alas, he has no strawberries for Pierre's mother. Madame Valcourt is close to tears. My cake with strawberries would be nothing without strawberries. Pierre knows a place in the woods and hurries off with his basket. Pierre gets on his knees and carefully plucks the tiny strawberries. What we have for the fish course, his father asked. The cod that I plan to serve tonight comes from the ocean, miles away. I must have something from our own countryside for the guest. I'll get a trout for you, Papa. Pierre catches a jar full of grasshoppers, takes up his fishing pole, and hurries to the river. He knows all the places where the trout hide. A quarter hour goes by, a half hour, 3/4 of an hour. At last, Pierre feels a tug on his line. He catches a fine trout. On his way across the woods from the river, a miracle occurs. Pierre sees the first mushrooms of the season. The rare mushrooms have a delicate perfume and give a magic to any dish. Carefully, Pierre gathers the mushrooms. Look, Papa, what I have found for the boeuf à la mode. Very nice, Pierre, but not traditional. His papa says, we must prepare our boeuf à la mode just as I have always prepared it, and as your grandfather prepared it. The regular guests are seated at their tables. In the kitchen, the trout is simmering in its coat of jelly. The lettuces are delicately dressed. The boeuf à la mode is simmering with its little potatoes and onions. The cheese is relaxing, and Pierre's mother is decorating the cake with the strawberries. Papa is unhappy. I am the chef, but I am also the restaurant owner. At a great restaurant, the restaurant owner is there to greet the guests, but I dare not leave the boeuf à la mode even for a moment, and your mother is very busy. Pierre says, Papa, I can watch the boeuf à la mode. His father is about to say, impossible. Instead, he snatches off his hat and hurries away to don the striped trousers and dinner jacket of a true restaurant owner. Pierre stands on a chair and stirs, adjusting the fire so there are only little bubbles and no big ones. On the kitchen table are the mushrooms with their delicate perfume. While his mother's back is turned, Pierre snatches the mushrooms and drops them into the boeuf à la mode. I wonder why Pierre did this. He took a risk. Moments later, his father appears. He mops the perspiration from his face and replaces his hat. "The guest is here," he says, and snatching up the plate with the trout, places it into the hands of the waiter, Albert. When Albert comes back, the plate is empty. But when the salad plate returns, there is a tiny leaf no larger than a mouse's ear. Alas, the leaf is a bit wilted and has been rejected by the guest. "A tragedy," cries Pierre's mother. As Pierre's father ladles out the boeuf à la mode, he sees the mushrooms. His face turns red and then white. "What a horror!" he shouts. Pierre runs out the kitchen door. When Pierre has the courage to creep back, his father forgives him for the guest plate with the beef à la mode, which comes back scraped clean, mushrooms and all. The guest has finished the dessert, Papa says, and is now having his café, or coffee. As the guest leaves La Bonne Vanche, he summons Monsieur Valcart and announces to the astounded restaurant owner, "I am not merely a guest, sir. I am an inspector from the company with the stars." He thanks him for the meal and departs. Pierre's mother falls into a swoon. His father falls into a chair. "Pierre," Monsieur Valcart asks, "did you know our guest was an inspector?" "Yes, Papa. Though we may never receive a star, Pierre, you were right to keep the secret. I would rather have a son who has honor than a star for La Bonne Vanche." Two weeks go by with no word from the company with the stars. At La Bonne Vanche, dinners are served, but faces are long. One morning, Pierre looks out to see the postman approaching, and behind him, the entire village is led by Madame Farcy, the cheese woman, as well as the greengrocer and the butcher. I wonder why they're coming. The postman hands Pierre's father a letter, and on the envelope is the return address of the famous company with the stars. Everyone crowds around. They assure Pierre's family that it does not matter about the star. While they all know there is no better restaurant than La Bonne Vanche, one can expect a small village to compete with the great restaurants of Paris, though in truth, it would be a great honor for the village. The hands of Pierre's father tremble as he opens the envelope and takes out the letter. "We have awarded you a star," the letter says. When the letter speaks of the delicacy of the dessert with strawberries, Pierre's mother blushes with pleasure. But the most complimentary words are saved for the boeuf à la mode. The inspector writes, "I am especially pleased to see the innovation of the mushrooms. Their delicate perfume added greatly to the traditional boeuf à la mode. Pierre," Papa says, "now you may cook." What a beautiful story. Pierre not only helps his family gather the ingredients for this special meal, but he also took a risk by trusting his own instincts and adding those mushrooms, which helped add some flair to the dish and also helped his family receive a star. I hope this story encourages you to follow your dreams, no matter how young you are. Thank you for joining. See you next time.